بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Moving forward with our lessons on the Arabic language. Up until now, what we've covered so far is that the meaning in the Arabic language is hidden within patterns and endings. Sarf is the science that teaches you how to form words, i.e. the patterns of words. And Nahu is that science that teaches you the endings, i.e. the last harakat on each word. And as we've mentioned, the majority of the meanings in the Arabic language come back to these 2 points. So if you've understood Nahu well and you've understood Sarf well, then you will be able to access the Arabic language at a very high level in terms of reading, writing, speaking, etc., etc. And then the third science you'd learn beyond this would be balagha, in which you'd be taught that you have multiple valid structures. Out of these multiple valid structures, which structure is the most appropriate for so and so time, which structure is the most appropriate for so and so place. And this is where the beauty of the Quran, where you're really able to appreciate the beauty of the Quran. But just a side point, when we cover invalid structures, valid structures right now, you don't need to worry about learning what is valid right now, what is invalid. This will all come. So don't worry about why something's invalid right now. Is it valid? Okay, all of this will come later on. And even if you don't know the five valid structures or you don't know the invalid structure, that's irrelevant. This is just to show you the purpose of balagha and nahu. All of this will come later on, bi'idhnillah. And we'll explain to you in good detail why certain structures are valid, why other structures are invalid. But before that, before we can teach you how structures work, we have to teach you how individual words work. Why am I saying this? The reason I'm saying this is because in the Arabic language, we have a chart. And this chart summarizes essentially the entirety of the Arabic language. I was once teaching at an institution and I had second year students. And I went to them, my first day, I sat down and I said, can any of you summarize the entire Arabic language for me in a minute? And everyone's looking at me like, what do you mean? We've been studying for a year. There's so many concepts. There's so many things. How are we supposed to summarize the entire Arabic language within a minute? So I told them that if you have this chart will essentially give you a summary of the entire Arabic language. And then obviously there's other charts as well, which we'll have covered later on. But this chart will give you an overview of the Arabic language. And for the first module, we're going to be focusing heavily on this chart up until perhaps halfway through the first module, if not further. And then after that, we're going to introduce newer concepts to you as well. But this chart will give you an overview of the Arabic language. And then once you have this overview, like I mentioned earlier, and you have words in the Arabic language, you need to understand how to connect them together. It's not sufficient to memorize 50 words, to memorize 100 words. It is not sufficient to memorize 200 words if you're not capable of putting these words together. Over here, we're going to give you an overview and we're going to teach you certain phrases and sentences. Bi'idhnillah. Later on in the second module, we'll cover all of this in detail once again and we'll teach you genuine rules and we're going to help you apply it. We will help you apply it. So every time you learn something in theory, it will be brought to life right away. And because it's brought to life right away, it's not just something in the back of your mind. It's not just an odd rule that you covered. Rather, it's something you see being applied every single day. So once you're able to recognize it, it will be much easier for you in your own understanding of Arabic to write it, to say it, and to apply it as well. The recognition is the first step. All of this will come bi'idhnillah, step by step. Now, so this chart, which we're going to give to you, is the key to the Arabic language. Okay, and over the next few lessons, we're going to be looking into this chart. And this is what we refer to as the qawl chart. The qawl. What is qawl? Qawl is any statement which has a meaning. So obviously in the Arabic language, you're looking for statements which have meanings, right? Otherwise, even babies speak, for instance, even animals make certain sounds. But we're not worried about these sounds. We're talking about sounds which have a meaning in the Arabic language. This is al-qawl. ما يلفظ من قول إلا لديه رقيب عتيد. In the Quran, we have the verse that the human being does not say anything min qawlin, all right, except that there is someone who is supervising him, um, referring to the angels, the kiram and katibin, who write down all of his statements. Ala qawl. Now, so this is what qawl means: a meaningful utterance, anything a person says that has a meaning. Now, obviously, when a person says something that has a meaning, either it's going to be a single word or it's going to be multiple words. And because we're covering, we want to arrive at how to understand multiple words. But you can only arrive at understanding multiple words once you understand single words. Because it's like building individual blocks. every sentence is built from different words. So if you're making a wall, if you have a wall in front of you, you can't just drop a wall on the spot. You have to put one brick at a time. You put cement on it, then you put the second brick, then you put the third brick, etc., etc. Likewise, before we understand the entire sentence and the entire phrase, we have to work with single words. And that's why over here, before covering the murakkab section, what's murakkab? Murakkab is going to be a compound structure. Before learning the compound structures, we have to first cover al-mufrad. When you have a single word in the Arabic language, what does that single word fall under? So once again, al-qawl, any meaningful utterance, will either be mufrad, a single word, or it will be murakkab, multiple words. You can call it a compound structure. You can call it multiple words. The point is to understand the concept. All right, before we understand al-murakkab, we need to understand al-mufrad, the single word in the Arabic language. For now, I'll just give you a general overview, and then we're going to dive into each and every single one of these over the next few lessons, bi'idhnillah. So number one, we have the mufrad, which is a single word. Any single word in the Arabic language, when you come across a single word in front of you, whether it's a single word within a sentence, within a group of larger words, whether it's a single word on a page which you've just written down, whether it's a new word you've learned in vocabulary, if it's a full word, it will either be in the Arabic language an ism, fi'il, or harf. And we're going to explain this to you soon, bi'idhnillah. It's either going to be an ism, fi'il, or harf. In fact, just to preempt explanation, I will tell you exactly what an ism is. An ism is a word that gives a meaning in and of itself without being attached to a tense. You don't have to write that down right now, it'll come later. But an ism is a word that gives a meaning in and of itself without being attached to a tense. So when you say tree, for instance, what do you think of? You think of a tree. The meaning has been given in and of itself. But do you understand the tense? Does your mind go to past tense, present tense, future tense? No, it doesn't. A fi'il, which is an action on the other hand, is a word that gives the meaning in and of itself whilst being attached to a tense. So when you say hit, you think of the meaning of hitting, but you also think of the past tense. When you say helping, and how do you say helping once again? We should have covered the vocabulary list by now. So how do you say helping in the Arabic language? Nasrun. Nasrun. If I say, for instance, yansuru, he is helping. Notice helping over here, you understand the meaning in and of itself, helping. But along with understanding helping, what do you also understand? You also understand the present tense. He will help. You understand the meaning in and of itself, but you also understand the future tense. All right, this is the fi'l. And again, we're going to cover all of this later on. This is just a general overview. Al-harf is something which gives a meaning in something else. So if you look at the word and, like and is used to connect two words together, right? Muhammad and Hamid. But if you don't have A and B, you cannot connect them. So the connecting word requires other words. It's giving a meaning of connection in something else altogether. And again, we're going to cover this later on, bi'idhnillah. On the other hand, when you put words together, so when I put, for instance, an ism and a fi'l together, or if I put a harf and an ism together, now I have a compound structure. This is murakkab. So when you block, when you take different pieces and you put them together, now you have a compound structure. You take different blocks, you put them together, you have a compound structure. That is called murakkab. Now in murakkab, in compound structures, you're going to have one of two structures. Either you'll have a structure which conveys a partial meaning. What do I mean by partial meaning? Think of, for instance, Zaid's book. Zaid's book. So what do you understand from this? You understand the book belongs to Zaid, right? Because Zaid's apostrophe S shows possession in the English language. Zaid's book. But what about the book? Is the book large? Is it small? Is it a notebook? Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it being used? Is it lost? I haven't given you complete meaning because even though you understand Zaid's book, I haven't given you information regarding Zaid's book. So even though Zaid's book is a compound structure, it's not giving a full meaning. Over here, we would say that this compound structure in front of you is a phrase. We would say this compound structure is a phrase. In English, in Arabic, afwan, you can call this غير مفيد. The murakkab, the compound structure is غير مفيد. It's not giving a full benefit. On the other hand, we have a structure which gives a full benefit, i.e. a sentence. So you take Zaid's book, and then you clarify Zaid's book is lost. Now you've, period. Now you've given a full benefit. Alright? Now in the Arabic language, traditionally, we don't have periods. We don't put periods traditionally in the Arabic language at the end of sentences. But in English, at the end of a sentence, you'd be allowed to put a period. So an easy way to understand this is in English, you can have multiple words, Zaid's book. But if you were to put a period after Zayd's book, that's grammatically incorrect in the English language. Likewise in Arabic, if you were to say Kitabu Zaydin, which means Zayd's book, Kitab means book, Zayd means Zayd, Kitabu Zaydin, book of Zayd. What about the book of Zayd? You are not allowed to actually maintain silence at this point. You have to clarify or give information regarding the book of Zayd. And only then will you have a full sentence. So once again, murakkab, when you take multiple words, you put them together, either you're giving a full meaning, which is a sentence, the book of Zayd is lost, or you're giving a partial meaning, which is you're giving two words. You understand possession, Zayd's book. But what about Zayd's book? It's not yet appropriate for you to maintain silence on this structure because you haven't given information regarding Zayd's book. This is just the general overview. Like I mentioned, we're going to zoom into each and every single one of these words. So number one, we're going to take apart al-mufrad. We're going to take apart the single word um, in the Arabic language. And we mentioned three types of words to you. This is why the reason we mentioned three is because every word in the Arabic language will either be an ism, a fi'l, or a harf. So you only have one of three categories. In the English language, you have a lot of categories. You have nouns, you have pronouns, you have verbs, you have um, prepositions, conjunctions, etc. You have a lot of different categories in the English language, but in Arabic you only have three categories: ism, fi'l, or harf. And I've already explained what an ism is. We're going to recap this once again. Ism indicates a meaning within itself without being attached to a tense. This is important. Without being attached to a tense. So let's take an example. The example we're going to take for now is qalam. All right. So qalam means pen. Qalamun means pen. When you hear the word pen, qalamun, what meaning comes to your mind? You think of a pen, right? But do you think of a tense? Do you attribute or associate this pen to the present tense, the future tense, the past tense? The answer is no. So qalamun is an ism because it indicates a meaning in itself without being attached to a tense. All right? We can take another example. Kitabun. Or let's take an example of talibun. Talibun means student. Talibun means student. All right. When you think of a student, you're thinking of someone who's studying. He has books with him. You're thinking of yourselves. Allah increase all of you in your studies. You're thinking of a student. Is that student attached to a tense? The answer is no. The student is not attached. You don't think of the student being attached to the present tense. You don't think of him being attached to the future tense. You don't think of him being attached to the past tense. You just think of the student, period. So it indicates a meaning within itself, but it's not attached to a tense. A fi'l, on the other hand, indicates a meaning within itself. So in this aspect, it's the same as the ism. They both indicate a meaning within themselves. However, a fi'l is attached to a tense. Now, this is very easy to understand in the Arabic language. Any verb. What is a verb? An action word. So, for instance, if you look at hitting, helping, standing, right, running, eating, drinking, these are all action words. When you use these in a sentence and you say, for instance, for example, nasara. Now, one second, what does nasara mean? Nasara means to help. If I say nasara hamidun, if I use it in a sentence, it would mean that Hamid helped. Take a look at the word helped. Now, in fact, let's take a look at Hamid as well. Hamid, what does Hamid mean? Hamid indicates a meaning in itself, correct? Is the word Hamid individually attached to a tense? The answer is no. So Hamid, the name, it gives a meaning in and of itself without being attached to a tense. Therefore, Hamid is also an ism. But Nasara, on the other hand, which means helped, that gives you the meaning of helping, but along with the meaning of helping, it also gives you the meaning of past tense. If you say, for instance, yansuru Hamidun, Hamid is helping or will help. So Hamid is helping. We'll just make this simple. We'll keep it to is helping over here. That gives you the meaning of helping, but along with giving you the meaning of helping, it also gives you the meaning of a tense. That's why it's a fi'l. A harf is different than the ism and the fi'l in the sense that a harf indicates a meaning in something else altogether. A harf does not indicate a meaning in and of itself. It indicates a meaning in something also. How does this work? I give you an example. The word and. Right? How do you say an in the Arabic language? You just say wow. Say like Hamidun wa Muhammadun. It means Hamid and Muhammad. All right. So the word and, can this give a meaning by itself? If I just come and say and, you need A and you need B for and to convey its meaning, because and conveys a meaning of connection within A and within B. Therefore, a harf is a word that conveys a meaning in something else. Let's take a look at another example. We'll take the example fi. Fi in the Arabic language means in. All right. In needs to occur within a container. So you have a cup, for instance. The meaning of in is occurring within the cup, where the water is in the cup. But if you just say in by itself, the meaning of in is not fully conveyed until you have a body or a container for withinness or containment to occur. So in indicates a meaning within something else. You need the cup to understand in. The water is in the cup. Now you understand in, because in indicates a meaning within something else. So recap, ism and fi'l both indicate a meaning, but ism, as in they both indicate a meaning in themselves, but ism indicates it without a tense, fi'l indicates it with a tense. Harf, on the other hand, indicates a meaning within something else. This is a summary of words in the Arabic language, single words. Now we're going to go into more detail in each and every single one of these words on two levels. The first level of detail we'll cover in this lesson. Just a basic explanation of how isms work, basic explanation of how fi'als work, and basic explanation of how harf works, or harf work. Very simple and very easy. In the next lesson, bi'idhnillah, we'll cover ism in more detail. In the lesson after the next, we'll practice, right? We'll apply whatever we covered to practice within bi'idhnillah, within Quranic verses and within Arabic words. And then in the lesson post that, we'll cover the fi'l, then we'll cover the harf, and then obviously we're going to apply those as well. That's why I say that for the next few lessons, we're just going to be handling the mufrad section, the single section of the qawl chart. Qawl is either mufrad, a single word, or murakkab, a compound structure. For the next few lessons, we're going to be handling mufrad. And then once we've covered single words, then we're going to learn how to put them together. And obviously, when you put them together, either you convey a partial meaning, i.e. phrases, so we're going to cover phrases first. Or you convey a full meaning, i.e. sentences, so we're going to cover sentences. And that's what we say for the next few lessons. We're just going to be unpacking the qawl chart. And in this sense, the qawl chart summarizes the entire language, the entire Arabic language. All right. An ism is a word that indicates a meaning in itself without being attached to a tense. So we've given you three examples here. Qalamun means pen. I've already explained this. Ahmadu means Ahmad. Right? When you think of a human being, you think of the human in and of itself without being attached to a tense. Ilmun means knowledge. Ilmun means knowledge. Now you'll notice knowledge is not something which is tangible. Right? In Arabic, you say it's a meaning, it's a ma'na, it's an intangible thing. But it's still an ism because it indicates a meaning within itself. Knowledge indicates a meaning. But that meaning it indicates is not attached to a tense. If you say, for instance, he is studying, he is knowledgeable, he was knowledgeable, now we have a different discussion. Because the was and the is gives it a tense. But knowledge in and of itself, helping in and of itself, standing in and of themselves, these are all isms because they indicate a meaning within themselves without being attached to a tense. The moment you say help, the moment you say help, he will help. The moment you say he is studying, he will study, he has studied. Now you've turned that word into a verb and now it's attached to a tense. So just to recap that, qalamun, Ahmed is very easy to understand. Ilm, knowledge, might be a bit difficult to understand. Because when you say ilm, knowledge, it's possible that someone's applying this or it's possible it's just a general meaning. If you take ilm in so as much as it being a general meaning, knowledge, love, generosity, um, all these words are general meanings. These are all isms because you understand the meaning, but they're not attached to a tense. But the moment you say, for instance, he was generous, or he is showing generosity, or he is knowledgeable, he was knowledgeable. Now you're attaching a tense to it. Now it will turn into a verb. And this will be very easy to understand once you cover the Arabic language, bi'idhnillah. You'll understand this. Now, the fi'l is a word that indicates a meaning in itself whilst being attached to a tense. Right? So we take, for instance, nasara, he helped. Notice if I say nasrun, once again, just to clarify this. If I say nasrun, what does nasrun mean? It means to help, right? This word, to help, is this a fi'l or an ism? If you said it's a fi'l, it's incorrect. Because to help, the concept of helping is not attached to a tense. You can think of the concept of helping, the meaning in and of itself, without being attached to a tense. Just like you can think of knowledge in and of itself without being attached to a tense. However, once you say he helped, now you've changed this into a verb. Now it's occurring within the past tense, and therefore it's a verb. It indicates the meaning in and of itself, along or whilst being attached to a tense. Therefore, it's a fi'l. Okay, yansuru, he is helping, will help. Notice that you've given it a tense. Because you've given it a tense, now it becomes a verb. Now, in English, we have three tenses. We have the present, we have the past tense, we have the present tense, and we have the future tense. Past, present, and future. The Arabic language works differently. The Arabic language works differently because the past tense has its own verb. The verb of the past tense is called madi. Like madi literally means it's come to pass. It's already done. The verb of the past tense is called madi. They call it the fi'l madi. It's a past tense verb. It already came to pass. In Arabic, the present and future tense both fall under one verb. The present and future tense both fall under one verb, and that verb is called the mudari'. So the mudari' verb, the fi'l mudari', can give you either the present tense or it can give you the future tense. That's what you'll notice. We have one word here in Arabic, but we've translated it. We've said that it's open to two translations. You can say he is helping or he will help. Now the question becomes, how do you differentiate between the verb being used in the present tense and between the verb being used in the future tense? That's just context. Context will tell you when the verb is being used in the present tense, and context will tell you when the verb is being used in the future tense. And it's very easy. At first, you might think it's difficult, but anytime you look into a sentence, for instance, if I'm talking to you and I ask that, I'll be teaching a lesson soon. I'll be teaching a lesson. So I want you to attend tomorrow. So to attend in Arabic, you say tahdur. I'm not going to say the entire sentence, but you say tahdur. Now, if I'm saying I'm teaching the lesson tomorrow, then of course your attendance and your being present will not occur right now. It's going to occur tomorrow. So even though I'm using the mudari' verb, tahdur can literally means you are attending, or tahdur can also mean you will attend. All right? But because I am saying I will be teaching it tomorrow, context will tell you that over here, present is not intended, rather the future tense is intended. So it's very easy to differentiate between the two of these. I'd say don't worry too much about this. This will be self-explanatory later on. Look at the context, you can easily tell which of the two meanings is intended. Now, like I'll give you an example from the Quran. If you look at the last ruku of Surah Maryam, the last ruku of Surah Maryam, this is a ruku which everyone should read the translation of. It's a very impactful ruku. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the day of judgment. And he says, أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّا أَرْسَلْنَا الشَّيَاطِينَ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ تَؤُزُّهُمْ أَزًّا فَلَا تَعْجَلْ عَلَيْهِمْ إِنَّمَا نَعُدُّ لَهُمْ عَدًّا يَوْمَ نَحْشُرُ الْمُتَّقِينَ إِلَى الرَّحْمَنِ وَفْدًا. The day we will resurrect the believing ones or the fearful ones, al-muttaqin. Yawma, the day, nahshur, we will resurrect al-muttaqin, the fearful ones, ila ar-rahmani wafda. Brackets, moving forth, and bracket, ila ar-rahman, towards the most merciful, wafda, in groups. Now, we can cover the meaning of this verse. I just want to focus on one thing. Yawma nahshuru. Yawma nahshuru. The day when we will resurrect. Nahshuru is a fi'l mudari'. It means to resurrect. It's possible nahshuru can mean we are resurrecting. It's possible it can mean we will resurrect. But the context tells you you're speaking about the day of judgment. The day of judgment is not currently happening. It will happen. So of course we're not going to translate this to the day which we are resurrecting in. Because it's the future tense. The context tells you it's the future tense. So this would mean that the context will help you understand whether what's intended through the mudari is the present tense or the future tense. Now, one tip which is important to learn, and we'll mention this over here, we're going to cover it later on as well. The mudari has a condition. For a word, a fi'l, a verb to be mudari, it needs to have one of four letters in the beginning. Either a hamza, or a ta, a ya, or a noon. So you notice yansuru has a ya in the beginning, extra ya. Nahshuru has an extra noon in the beginning. Okay. Some words will have ansuru, it'll have an extra hamza in the beginning. It will have an extra ta in the beginning, tansuru. This will all be covered later on. But for now, just keep these words in mind. Atayna, all right, these letters must be in the beginning of the mudari. These letters will be added on in the beginning of the mudari. The third verb in the Arabic language is the command verb. The command means amr. In Arabic, we call this fi'lu al-amr. Okay, the command verb. Al-mudari is the present slash future, and al-madi is the past tense. Al-amr, fi'lu al-amr is the command verb. How does the command verb work? It's very simple. You give a command, and obviously that command will occur within the future. Like, so when we say it's attached to a tense, because it's going to occur in the future. If I say help, the helping can occur right now, didn't occur in the past, didn't occur in the future. So it's giving you a meaning which is attached to a tense. Unsur, help. All right. If I say, for instance, nasaha means to advise, right? So if I say, for instance, insah, you two men, or insah, you advise, you single man advise, give advice. That's going to occur in the future. This is called the amr, and we're going to explain to you how to understand each and every single one of these later on. Bi'idhnillah. Finally, we have the harf. It indicates a meaning in something else. And I've explained this before, but let's just take an analogy to help us understand it better. If you ask anyone today, if you're driving and you see a red light, what does that red light mean? So they'll tell you red light over here necessarily means stop. Everyone knows this means stop. But if I take that same red light and I put it in a different context, does it still mean stop? If, for instance, there's a child pointing a laser at a wall and that laser happens to have a red light, does that mean stop? No. If, for instance, there is a red light which is um, flashing back and forth on top of a fire alarm, does that mean stop? So if you walk into a building and there's a fire alarm that's going on and there's a red light flashing back and forth, are they telling you to stop over here and wait till you burn? Of course not. They're telling you to get out of the building. So the red light gives the meaning of stop, but when does it give the meaning of stop? When there's a road. If you take that exact same red light, put it elsewhere, it's not going to give the meaning of stop anymore. A harf is the same. A harf has a meaning, but that meaning will occur within something else. So a harf has a meaning, but it's dependent on another word to accurately convey its meaning. Just like the red light is dependent on the context to either give the meaning of stop or to give the meaning of leave this building immediately, if it's a fire alarm, for instance, or to give different meanings. So likewise, a harf indicates a meaning within a different word, something else. And I gave you two examples. We're just going to repeat them, and I want you to keep these examples in mind. The word wow, wa, and the word fi. What does wow mean? Naam. Wow means and. What does fi mean? It means in. All right. We've already presented the examples, and I'm sure you understand this now. All right. Now let's apply this. Let's apply this to English. And like I said, whenever we apply, in the beginning, we're going to apply to English. And then later on, once you're comfortable, we'll start applying to Arabic as well. I traveled from Canada to Medina. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take us all to the beloved city of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and keep us all over here. I traveled from Canada to Medina. We're going to take out each word one by one and try to understand, is this word an ism? Is it a fi'l or is it a harf? I, what does I mean? Myself. It's a pronoun, it refers to myself. Is this an ism? Is it a fi'l or is it a harf? So try to answer yourselves. Okay. The answer is I is an ism. How do we know it's an ism? We know it's an ism because it indicates a meaning in and of itself. Is it attached to a tense? Is my being, I, attached to a tense? The answer is no. So therefore, this is an ism. Traveled is a fi'l. How do we know traveled is a fi'l? Because it gives the meaning in and of itself. To travel is a meaning, but it's attached to the past tense. It gives both a meaning and it also gives a tense. Therefore, it is a fi'l. From, the word from, does that give a meaning in and of itself? Or does it require something else to convey a meaning? So from requires a beginning point. It's telling the start point, right? Therefore, it requires a beginning point. If there's no Canada, you cannot say from. So it's conveying a meaning of beginning. Where does from convey that meaning? It conveys that meaning in another word. Therefore, from is a harf. Canada, once again, conveys a meaning in and of itself without being attached to a tense. Therefore, it is an ism. To. Now, once again, the word to. Does it convey a meaning in itself? No, it doesn't. To is conveying a meaning within the endpoint. So therefore, it needs an endpoint. It's conveying a meaning within something else. Therefore, it is a harf. And finally, Medina. Medina. على صاحبها أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم. نعم, this is the name of a city. It's conveying a meaning in and of itself without being attached to a tense. Therefore, it is an ism. Now you've practiced this over here. I want everyone to take these three sentences and perhaps pause the video. And once you're ready, we're going to continue on with these sentences bi'idhnillah. So pinpoint the ism, fi'l, and harf in the following. Number one, Amir dropped food on the carpet. Amir, does that indicate a meaning in and of itself? Yes, it does. Is it attached to a tense? When you think of Amir, do you think of a tense? No, you don't. Therefore, Amir is an ism. Okay. Dropped. Does it indicate a meaning in and of itself? Yes, it does. Is it attached to a tense? Yes, it is attached to the past tense. Therefore, dropped is a fi'l. The word dropped is a fi'l. Food. Does food indicate a meaning in and of itself? Yes, food does indicate a meaning in and of itself. Is it attached to a tense? No, it's not attached to a tense. Therefore, this is an ism. On. Does on indicate a meaning in and of itself, or does it indicate a meaning in something else? So on indicates what we call fawqiyah, for something to be above another. So clearly, on is indicating a meaning in something else because you need another in order for um, fawqiyah, which means placement from above. So in order for above to occur, you need another, which is below. Therefore, on indicates a meaning in something else. It's indicating meaning in the carpet, right? Therefore, we call this a harf. The. What does the indicate? In the English language, what does the word the indicate? The in the English language indicates specification. Indicates specification. If it's not any carpet, it's a specific carpet. If I say a man, it can be any man. If I say the man, okay, now it's a specific person. So the indicates specification. Does specification occur within the itself, or does it occur within something else? So what you're specifying is not the word the. What you're specifying is the carpet. A carpet refers to any carpet. By bringing the carpet, I've specified this specific carpet. A man refers to any man. By saying the man, I've specified this specific person. Therefore, the is also a harf. The is also a harf. Finally, carpet, is this an ism, fi'al, or harf? So carpet indicates a meaning in and of itself without being attached to a tense. Therefore, this is an ism. Harun and Muhammad arrived. Harun indicates a meaning in and of itself without being attached to a tense. Therefore, this is an ism. Now, again, someone might tell you, easy way, yeah? If it's a name, it's an ism. If it's a name, if it's a noun, it's an ism. That's true, but I want you to understand the definition. I will explain to you exactly what part of English speech falls under these categories, ism, fi'l, and harf later on. But if you understand the definition, you don't need that. You don't need the easy method out that every noun is an ism. You can understand that if it indicates a meaning in and of itself, without being attached to a tense, it is an ism. This is not difficult. It's a very easy concept to understand. So we're just going to understand ism along with the actual definition which the Arabs have presented for it, right? But indicates a meaning in and of itself without being attached to a tense. Harun and Muhammad. The word and is connecting A to B. So it's showing connection within A and B. Therefore, it is a harf. Okay. Muhammad indicates a meaning in and of itself without being attached to a tense. Therefore, Muhammad is an ism. Arrived. What is that? Is that an ism, fi'l, or harf? Arrived shows arrival. That's the meaning within the past tense. So it indicates both the meaning and the past tense. Therefore, this is a harf. An fi'l, sorry. Therefore, this is a fi'l. All right. Yahya learned Arabic. Yahya indicates the meaning in and of itself. The person Yahya, the student Yahya, without being attached to a tense. Therefore, Yahya is an ism. Learn, learn indicates a meaning in and of itself whilst being attached to a tense. Because learn occurs in the past, right? Therefore, learn is a fi'l. And finally, Arabic. The word Arabic, may Allah teach all of us Arabic, indicates a meaning in and of itself without being attached to a tense. Because when you think of Arabic, you think of the language, but you don't think of past tense, present tense, future tense. Therefore, Arabic is an ism. All right? To summarize, ism, the meaning occurs within itself, not tied to a tense. For example, huwa means he, baytun means house. Now, the example I want you to memorize for this, because you come across quite a few words, you can memorize all the words in the lesson, but what I want you to keep, al aqal, the mere minimum you have to memorize is, qalamun means pen, okay, and talibun means student. This I need to have memorized prior to the next lesson. All right. Fi'al indicates a meaning in itself whilst being tied to a tense. Kataba means he wrote. Yaktubu means he writes or he will write. Okay. And we told you that fi'al can either be maldi, mudari, or amr. The fi'al maldi is the past tense verb. The fi'al mudari is the present slash future tense verb. And context will decide what meaning is intended. And the fi'al amr is the command verb. All right. Meaning in and of itself tied to a tense. Over here, what I want you to memorize is um, nasara, which means he helped. Yansuru, which means he will help or he is helping. Okay. Harf is something which indicates a meaning in something else. And the two examples you have to memorize are in front of you. What means and fi means and. And with this, we've covered our next lesson on the Arabic language. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.